Attending conventions can seem like an awesome move for a creator. And in fact, I've both landed work and built great community by attending conventions. So, do I recommend that you as a creator go to a convention? Maybe. Let's find out why today on Success in RPGs. We're looking at social media and we're looking at folks going to conventions and we're thinking, wow, that looks amazing. That's so fun. People are having a great time. And oh, look, there's that person getting their picture taken with a famous designer. And they even played a game that designer ran. And they're giving a seminar that looks so cool. Wow, this has all got to be great for your career, right? And that's a very natural reaction to have when you're sitting on your couch looking at your phone or otherwise checking on what someone else is doing, because that person is showing you the coolest things that can happen at a convention. And it's true. And actually, if we go back to just 1 and 2 episodes ago that I covered on Success in RPGs, talking about being successful in freelance projects, one of the things we talked about is being found, right? We want to be where people will see our work and meet us and get to know us. And we want to be where other people will be talking about projects and sharing possible job leads so that we can land freelance work. And even if we're not freelancing, if we're doing cartography, if we're doing editing, layout, whatever it might be, these are all things that, we want to be somewhere where we can meet people. And so conventions naturally look really good for that. So let's start with the fun stuff. Let's talk about why conventions are great and what can be really cool about attending a gaming convention. Let's start with reason number 1 for why you want to attend conventions. And it's the one to me that is really, really critical. We can afford it. You've got the money that you need to go to a convention, and we're going to talk about the cost later. Great. This is an awesome vacation, and you're supporting the hobby. You'll probably end up buying stuff at a dealer's room. You'll maybe pick up a book or two, talk to lots of friends, go out to meals together. If you've got the cash to go to a convention, hey, no reason not to. And yeah, you might sometimes land a job too, so even better. Another great reason to attend conventions, playing games and running games. These speak to my heart. I'm the kind of person that goes to a convention and all I do is play and run games. Not all I do, but I fill my entire schedule, right? So everything else I do at a convention fits between the cracks of playing and running games, because I so love to play and run games and try out new systems. And in fact, if we go back to episode 13 and talking about honing our creator skills, these are fantastic ways to do that, because you are playing games, hopefully new games or games that you love, but run by different people with different players. It's a fantastic way to keep your pulse on sort of different styles of play, different approaches to GMing, different ways to run a character and make your character cool at the table, different ways to make the table have a blast when you're a player there. Builds that are absolutely ridiculous with your favorite RPG. So many things you can learn by playing and running games in public. I've talked a lot at various places about how I love to run one adventure several times for different groups. And you can do that really easily at conventions. And you get to see, wow, when I leaned into this kind of part of the adventure, here's what happened. Or when I changed this little part, or if I made this kind of change to the end, it was that much more climactic, right? All kinds of lessons you get by running games in public for new groups that we don't know. That's not just our home group. So absolutely, these are great reasons to attend a convention. Conventions are also fantastic places to meet people, right? We can meet people at the table just as we happen to be playing. And in fact, it's amazing what friendships I've developed from just people that I met at the table at a convention. And over the time, we saw each other again and again, or we remembered a really fantastic session, and then they ended up working in the industry, and now we know each other. But that connection at the convention was super, super important to us, right? You meet people also at seminars, right? You go listen to a panel, someone speaking, and afterwards you go and chat with them, you get to know them. And one of the things that can happen at conventions is you see somebody and you kind of create a little bit of a relationship, and then you see them in a second setting, like that night at the bar, or you see them, walking through a convention hall, and you get a little more connection, and that can happen. But it's important to say, I'm going to stay on the reasons to attend, but you can't guarantee this, right? Meeting people takes effort, takes work, and it's very hit or miss. You can go to an entire convention and not really meet up with the people you hope to, right? So it is absolutely a benefit, but one that is hard to quantify and hard to count on. You may want to attend a convention to land work, and absolutely that is a possibility. My ratio of landing work to the number of conventions I attend, pretty low. It's definitely not one a year, and I might attend 3 conventions a year on average, 2 to 3. It might be 1 out of 10. So pretty low, and I'm a fairly established person. Landing work at conventions can happen, but it's difficult and it takes work. It usually works best when you have an in, when you have a reason that folks are going to want to get closer, and just seeing you, they're going to think, hey, let me tell you about this project. And that's the best situation to be in. A thing that used to be a big part of it, folks would attend conventions to hear about the latest industry news, to discover trends, to find out secrets of, someone would spill the beans on a new product line, or when the next edition of D&D is going to launch, or anything like that. These days, that news is kept a lot quieter. That news is kept quiet. The releases are they may not even be at the convention. In fact, you may hear about it before you go to the convention, because now the emphasis on marketing means you often release information first, and then at the convention reinforce it and draw attention to it. So there really isn't that much of this where you really are learning news that you wouldn't learn otherwise. And in fact, you could be at home and you'll probably hear a summary of the convention and learn all the news the same way. Sometimes you can get some insider information directly from somebody, but it is rare and not something you can count on. If you've never been to a convention, you might wonder what to expect out of the experience. And it's hard to say. They really do vary from convention to convention. For example, in my area of Oregon, we have GameStorm. GameStorm is a pretty small convention. It's one where it's a number of ballrooms linked together in a convention center that can often be like a large hotel. From year to year, it varies. It's either a convention center or a hotel, and several different rooms there. And you're going in and you can register for some things ahead of time. You can also drop in and just register on the spot, signing up for various games. A lot of fun, very low pressure, pretty easy to get to. And I can just drive there. So I'm sleeping at home and check it out and have fun. That's a great convention. Convention like Winter Fantasy is one where that convention is focused on Dungeons and Dragons. It has a few other games, but it's largely D&D. It's run by folks who know and love D&D, fantastic DMs from all throughout the D&D sphere. And it's a great place to meet like admins who run organized play. From years, they've had actually Wizards of the Coast staff that you can meet and interact with folks like that. But it is like all D&D all the time in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at a big open convention room at this convention center, like a huge, sprawling, big, open, one large room with tons and tons of tables running epics and interactives and all kinds of neat experiences there. Then you've got something like PAX. And PAX itself comes in lots of different flavors. PAX has PAX Unplugged, which is tabletop focused. There's PAX West, PAX East, and they all are slightly different. So you've got to research them. I often go to PAX West. I've been to PAX Unplugged. PAX is different. It comes from a video game mentality. So even PAX Unplugged can be different into how it looks at game registration, how you sign up for your individual game sessions, how lines work can be very different. Folks at PAX tend to be a little younger, kind of like trying out video games and then also trying out tabletop, but it can be really neat and refreshing. Same thing with Emerald City Comic Con in the Seattle area. And some of the Comic Cons elsewhere can also be like that. Kind of younger crowds, they're into video games and comics and just kind of geekiness. And then they want to play some RPGs on the side, and not just D&D either. A convention like Gamehole Con, super fun. It is relatively small in Madison, Wisconsin. There is a big emphasis on trying to bring a lot of guests in with different perspectives from the industry, both like folks who were there at the beginning, the dawn of the RPGs, who are now, and folks now who are shaping RPGs. And you get pretty good opportunities to get to meet these guests because it's a fairly small, confined convention center that is using all of its different space and rooms. And you have really big showings by companies like Monte Cook Games and Free League and others. And so it can be a lot of fun. You can play tons of different games. In fact, you can kind of get the variety that you'd find a much bigger convention like Origins or the big daddy of them all, Gen Con. This is my 2008 pass to Gen Con. Gen Con is sprawling, enormous. You could play D&D and just live at like the JW Marriott Hotel where that's run, or you could be at the train station hotel, or you could be in the convention center, or even playing on the football field. I'm serious about that. And getting from one place to the other can be an adventure. And all of this varies on what you want out of the experience, right? If you're going to be playing one game, whatever it is, right? You're playing Shadowrun, sun up to sundown. Well, you're going to be in one spot. And where you want to be hotel wise and food wise is going to be reflected by where those games are. If you're all over the place at a convention like Gen Con and you're playing all kinds of games and attending seminars and board games and card games and all of that, you might be running all over the place to get there in time to all those events. I've done that. It's a lot of fun. And then there are huge dealer halls. The Gen Con dealer's room is enormous. It's a little small at Origins. So it really does vary, right? There's a lot that you can get out of the experience, and how you interact with it will vary. I started with a really small local con, and that helped me really kind of get my feet under me, experience just, wow, look at all these people at, 20 different tables playing a game. And this is incredible. And I think I signed up for events at the convention and I just played and I met amazing GMs that just blew my mind. It was fantastic and got me started on being a real fan of them as a vacation thing, right? As a thing to do for fun. Local conventions are great because you can just drive to them and probably stay at your own house. Or at least keep costs pretty low because you know the area. That is really helpful. Larger conventions, as we'll see, can have really big costs associated with them if you have to fly, if you need hotel rooms in an expensive downtown area, right? Those are all big impacts. So it's hard to say what to expect, but I hope this helps a bit and frame the experience. It'll really vary by the convention you choose. One thing that I'd really suggest is go out there and see if folks have done video blogs, kind of coverage of what it's like. For example, my friend Nellie does videos every year of her Gen Con experience. And it's really cool. Not only do I get to see my friends in these videos, but it really does a great job of just wandering the halls, capturing the enormity of everything that Gen Con involves. And it's everything from registering beforehand for games and how that works, to showing up at the airport and getting from the airport to the convention center, and sometimes going out to eat and walking the halls and just all of it. So you can just go through videos like this and get a great feel for what Gen Con's like. There are other people who cover other conventions in similar fashion. So that's a great way to just check things out and see whether it feels good to you. Is it intimidating? Is it too loud? Is it not loud enough? You'll find that out by checking out these kinds of resources. All right, so let's talk about the drawbacks, the dreaded part of this video. And the first one is, will you actually make the most of it, right? So you don't want to go all the way to convention. Let's say you go to one that's in another country and you fly across and you get there, and the next day you go, I'm too tired, I'm just going to sleep in. And you don't even attend the first day. That's a lot of money to have your first day just be recuperating, right? Or if you say, I'm going to go to a convention and I'm going to make contacts, I'm going to get to know people, and I'm going to give out business cards, and I've printed out business cards, and you find you didn't get around to printing the business cards, but you say, oh, I'm going to do it anyway. And then you actually feel, I'm a little intimidated. I'm not going to actually reach out to people. Then you're not really realizing your goals, right? So think about what those goals were, right? When you're looking at all the advantages of attending, are you actually going to do that? Marketing ourselves, for example, if I put on the creator lens for going to a convention, marketing ourselves is draining. It's tough. It's easier if you're an extrovert. It can take a lot out of you if you're an introvert. And so that is something that's very easy to get to the convention and actually then not quite do what you expected to do. Manning a booth is super hard if you're going to actually sell your wares at a convention. It takes a lot out of you. If you haven't done before, it may be worth doing so at a smaller scale and the cheapest way possible before you take the plunge for, say, something like Gen Con, where there are major costs to have a stall at a convention. Playing games, running games, that can also be something that you may not make the most of, probably the easiest of the goals, but still you've got to do that, right? Register early enough so that you get the slots you want to, sign up to run the games you want to run, and make sure that you feel prepared for them, that you're going to do a good job, that you're going to be able in that position where you can actually pay attention to your table, feel good running the game, and learn all those awesome things from the games that you're running. So that's a really, really critical drawback. Go back to your goals and think, why am I attending? Am I going to actually do that so that I get my money's worth for all of this and my energy's worth for attending the convention? Next, we're going to talk about financial costs. But if you haven't already, could you click on that thumbs up icon down below? It helps me a lot. And if you really want to be a huge help, if you can share this video with someone you know who you think would like it, or in a place where other folks are who might like this, that would be a huge help to helping my Success in RPGs series reach more people and be itself more successful. Thank you. Absolutely critical for the drawbacks. Finances. Conventions are shockingly expensive most of the time. What do I mean by that? Well, if you can just drive to your local convention in your town and show up for the day, you may just be looking at a badge cost, some tickets to play games, and then you're driving back and sleeping in your own sweet bed, and maybe you could bring a sandwich and you just have a dinner cost. That's a really cheap vacation. Fantastic way to do all the things that might be your goals at that local convention. On the other hand, conventions can be super, super expensive, and they often are, maybe more often than not. So it's really important to understand the finances behind conventions and to think through whether you are really in a position to take this on, especially if your goal as a creator is to land jobs or create opportunities or further your career. That has a financial side to it, right? You probably wouldn't spend thousands on, say, a new word processing piece of software, or thousands on Twitter advertising, for, to use a terrible example. You should definitely not do that. But you wouldn't probably just do social media advertising for thousands of dollars. So thousands of dollars to attend a convention may not be a good use of your money. Let's actually take a look at some numbers, because I am fortunate enough to itemize my deductions. I have to keep track of everything I spend convention after convention. And then I have to go into these numbers and say, well, which part of it can I actually deduct? And I have to do all of that as part of my doing my taxes. So I've got records going back, and I can look at sort of what it's like to attend some of these conventions that I like to visit. So here you can see 4 different conventions I attended all last year. And some of these I've attended in previous years as well. So I've been going to GameholeCon and Winter Fantasy and PAX West for a lot. This is my first Emerald City Comic Con. And this gives you an idea of how much the costs can vary. And I need to explain some of these costs. So Winter Fantasy, I have to fly there, right? Fort Wayne, Indiana. This ticket was pretty reasonable. They're usually around like this. Sometimes they've been way more expensive. And in fact, my GameholeCon airfare, it's $570 the last time I went. But the time before that, it was over $1,000 just for airfare. Admission and event tickets. I've got a comment here on this field because I have to say that I am often GMing at both GameholeCon and Winter Fantasy. So I don't have that many event tickets that I'm running, and my badge is free. So neither of these includes a badge cost for GameholeCon or Winter Fantasy. And in both of them, my hotel is free because I'm a guest or I'm GMing, and so there's no hotel cost. Wow, that is a great savings. Then you've got meals. GameholeCon, I was able to keep things pretty reasonable because they have free breakfast at the hotel. So that's right there. It's really not 3 meals a day, it's 2. And then I had, they have food carts, and the food carts are pretty cost effective. So just $138 for that. That's fantastic. Winter Fantasy is also pretty cheap. All breakfasts are covered. The hotel has free breakfast. So it's really 2 meals a day. And it goes up and down what we spend, but generally it's pretty cost effective. So $282, very reasonable. And then I have some things like mileage to the airport and back, or maybe I did a ride share that year. Those costs kind of vary and fit into there, going back and forth. So the end of it is that both Winter Fantasy and GameholeCon are pretty similar to the cost to me under these scenarios that I'm attending, right? Just under 1,000, right? 930, 860. Still no small amount, right? This is a serious cost. And we'll talk later about what this means if my point of going was to land work. Let's go down below to some more expensive territory, Seattle, Washington. And I live in Portland, Oregon, so it shouldn't be that hard to get up to Seattle. It's still really expensive. For example, to PAX West, I drove up there. The mileage actually comes out to $116 as a cost. Yeah, I'm not paying that out, but that is supposed to represent the wear and tear on my car is $116 worth. And in fact, gasoline was $90 just for that. So that's $200 just to get there and back. And I'm not flying, right? The admission, there aren't event tickets, but there were badges. $220 for a badge, right? And the hotel for 5 nights, actually, I think that's 4 nights, but I have to check. It's either 4 or 5 nights, but still $1,300. Gen Con could sometimes have really high costs like this for hotels, but we would be 8 of us in a room. And that's how we kept it manageable, right? 8 people in a room. Now your costs are really low. And if you're driving with a bunch of people, then that's further reduces it, right? Meals for PAX West, Seattle is not cheap. So $344 just on eating. Some of these costs do sort of include my son in there. I couldn't separate that out at this level. So it can be lower, but we were often finding things were closed. In fact, this could arguably be higher because sometimes at night we really couldn't eat a reasonable meal. And then I had to print some materials one year for running intro sessions. $213 just of printing costs. And those are things we can forget when we're attending a convention. And suddenly we realize, oh, I'm going to go print this stuff. Oh, that's $200 that I didn't budget for at all. So you can see PAX West, $2,287 to attend. Yeah, okay. Emerald City Comic Con. Here I'm taking the train, $27, very effective. I combined it with a work trip, so I actually flew out of there to do a work trip, so I didn't pay to come home. But if I had, instead of 27, it would have been, 54. I was GMing and in fact running all of the D&D events there, so I didn't pay to get in. I didn't have ticket costs because I didn't play anything. I was just running stuff and organizing. My hotel was free, again, because of the role I was playing. And so all I had was meals. $200, right? And that's actually, kind of what it would look like if we talked about my local gaming convention when I can attend. It's really low cost because it's just a badge and driving there, gas, a couple meals. So this gives you a feel for how much it can vary. And what I wanted to do next, I wanted to estimate those costs a bit more of, what if I wasn't saving money, right? What if I had to pay for everything? And so I actually went out and did some searching for what the hotels generally cost. And you can see that in these kind of pink shaded prices, right? Here's where I've tried to fill out the rest of it. Now, I didn't do everything. So I kept the admission and event tickets where they were for me when I attended Winter Fantasy and Gamehole Con. I did estimate the badge cost for Emerald City Comic Con based on last year's prices. And you can see the hotel costs. And here you get a real feel for, okay, Winter Fantasy can be $1,500, $1,600 if you've got to fly there, if you're paying for the hotel, meals, ride shares, all of that. Gamehole Con can be $1,500 as well. I used one of the local hotels there, or 2 of them actually, the 2 most popular. They basically were the same amount, right? $600 if it's just you. Go with a friend, we just saved $300. Right? So that's one of the really good things to do is save money on how you get there. If you're sharing the ride together, if you coordinate being in the airport and riding somewhere together and split that ride share, if you're driving from another city to the city where the convention takes place and you do it with a bunch of friends, all of this is possible. I know folks who bring coolers with lunch meat and other things, and they make sandwiches to cut down on costs. So whatever works, right? But it's hard to save on all of these costs. It's really hard to go to a major convention that isn't in your town for a low cost. PAX West, you can see cracks the 2,000 mark again with those costs that we saw before. Emerald City Comic Con can be the same kind of price or less. You can see here the hotel, if you do it early enough, can actually be you can find some cheaper options there. That's a lot of what happened there is $600 less for booking the hotel if I were to book today, right? As when I booked PAX West, because it had to be done 2 run events, I was doing this for somebody else, then that had to happen much closer to the event. And in fact, I was reimbursed for it, so it wasn't truly my cost. Okay, so you get a feel for this. Now, let's say we are a creator and we decide, I'm going to go to these conventions so that I can land work, or so that I can get people my business cards so that they will give me work, or, you know, some other version of that, right? Where my main reason there is marketing myself, getting future opportunities. Well, you can see we just accrued some pretty huge costs. So here I'm taking these costs and I'm adding an extra line you'll see below each of these conventions about, if I were paid 12 cents a word and I was a writer, how many words do I have to write to just break even on being at the convention, right? So if I go to Winter Fantasy, I have to write 13,125 words at 12 cents a word, and then that is covered. But to actually be positive, I had to land another job, right? This just covers that. GameholeCon, similar. PAX West, 17,000 words, 11,000 words for Emerald City Comic Con, since I can keep my transportation costs lower and booked the hotel earlier. But if I went to all 4, I would need to write 54,042 words to afford these conventions and break even. And then I'd have to hope that having attended these somehow will lead to more work than the job I actually needed to cover this. And that is hard. As I've said, I've been to a lot of conventions. I generally go to 2 or 3 a year. Back in around the year 2000 to 2008, I would go to sometimes 7 conventions a year when I was younger, and I could drive to all of the ones that are in my area on the East Coast. It is really hard to land opportunities directly from a convention unless you're very established. And then even then, it will not happen, 1 per convention. So the truth is, if you're looking at it as a creator, just even to break even and cover it as a vacation requires a significant project to cover that, right? Which is tough. I wish that weren't the case. So what that really means is, if we are going to attend a convention, we have to make the most of it as a creator, right? If our goal is more than vacation, and even if it is, but especially if it's more than vacation and we're going there to try to do things that are related to work, we've got to make the most of it. So let's talk about how we do that. If you decide to attend, what do we do, right? And there are a couple of keys to make sure we make the most of it. Registration is really important, right? We saw that example just now with costs and hotels. Registering for hotels when the portal opens, so that you end up where you want to be and at a reasonable price. Some conventions like Gen Con, housing registration's really tough. Looking at options like Airbnb, really important. Doing that is very important. Event registration. If you're going to play games, it's really important to land great games. It's really disappointing if you go there because you really want to play game X or Y and those are all sold out. So picking conventions where there's better chances to land them is important, but also registering on time so you'll be there. You've got your badges, you've got your events, you've got your hotels, you've got your airfare at a decent time, right? That's also a challenge. Starting early enough that if prices are really high, you can wait, see if they descend, and then decide, yep, I'm attending, and now I'm getting everything. The budget, super important. Budgeting, so you know what you expect your costs to be, and you're going to stick to them. You don't want to be really careful on things like airfare and then somehow blow it and buy a bunch of things and realize they won't fit the suitcase and you got to ship it back, right? There are a lot of ways you can blow a budget. So being conscientious of that will help you make the most of it and feel good about the fact that you attended this convention. Buddies, super, super important. Buddies can help with all kinds of things. For example, game registration, I would often go to Origins or Gen Con with a bunch of friends, and we'd all be in the registration system. We'd all have planned out what we wanted to play. We've got all our events lined up ahead of time, and we are all mashing that button trying to get the games. And if we land it, we get tickets for each other, and we say, hey, I landed the ones for that one game, and everybody can return any extras they have. and we compare, and usually can return things you don't need by a certain time frame for full credit. So you can sign up, get the things you want, buy buddies, increase your chances that you're going to land those things, and then split them all between all your friends. And having people you know at the table, at meals, at any of these convention events makes it a lot more fun. Buddies also will tie importantly into the next point I'm going to make about being professional, because buddies can watch out for you. They can accompany you home at the end of the night. They can make sure you don't stay up too late, that you are making good impressions on people around you, that you're not drinking too much, right? Having so much fun that you're going to embarrass yourself, right? That is really important if you're out there to make contacts, that you be a professional person and show people that you are capable of responsibility and all of that, right? They're going to be a good team player. So buddies help with all of those kinds of things. And yeah, as you just heard, being professional is a big part of being at a convention. You want to be someone that's dependable, that's helpful, right? In fact, one of the ways that you can really deepen connections is to say you're interested in organized play and you're helping out, and you made props for your table and then gave them out to other GMs beforehand, or you were participating on the forums or Discord, whatever's used for GMs, and sharing great ways to make the adventure run well. And maybe you volunteered, jumped in, and helped to seat a table or run an extra table when a GM fell sick, right? Those kinds of things that show how professional you are, how dedicated you are, they make big impressions, right? You sit down at a player with a famous person that you want to get to know and see how they run the game, and they're a famous designer, and you're great fun for everybody at the table. That's going to be a much better impression than if you're hogging all the action, trying to prove that you really know how to, make a build within their system. And really important, we want to review our goals, right? We want to do this, of course, as we're planning whether to even attend the convention, right? Will this convention actually help me along the goals that I have? Am I going to be able to play the games I want to play? Am I going to be able to meet people? Are the people that and the games that I'm interested in going to be there, right? But we also, right before we leave, right, we're ready to get on that plane or drive or however we're getting there, take a look at those goals again and remind yourself, yeah, this is why I'm going. These are the things I really want to do. Like, I want to go run a bunch of games and learn from that experience, right? Or I want to go and meet this company and really talk to them. Or I'm running a booth and here's what I have as my sales targets. That's really important. And what I also recommend is halfway through the convention, review those goals, especially if you're new at this, right? If it's one of your first conventions, and think to yourself, and it's not about holding like making yourself feel bad. It's the opposite. It's saying, okay, hey, I'm here at this convention. Here's how it's going. I had these goals. Should I make any adjustments, right? To get even more out of the experience? Because maybe you halfway through realize, I'm actually not trying out new games, and I meant to do that. So let me go quickly sign up for something I've never played before, or do some demos in the dealer's hall. Just quick spend of time to just try out different systems and learn from that. Maybe I'm going to go to the dealer's room and just shake some hands and talk to people and get a feel for it. Ask questions. I'm going to go to a panel. Those little adjustments halfway through can make a big difference for your convention. And when you get back home, thinking through and reviewing how it went and what you should do differently next time. Just even a little bit of time spent on that mentally, and write down some notes of, hey, next time I want to do this differently, right? I spent too much on this thing. I would rather spend more time doing this than on this other activity. That's a really good way to adjust your goals over time so that your convention goals end up being better and better. So I hope this has been useful to you. If you attend conventions or have been thinking about it, let me know what you thought about this video. And if you have any other tips for folks, leave them down below in the comments. I hope that you are now able to assess whether a convention meets your needs as a creator and whether it is worth the cost. Maybe you've got some ideas on how to reduce that cost. So let me know what you think about this. Thank you to everybody that makes this video possible from my Patreon. And I'll see you next time on Success in RPGs.